Hey everyone, welcome to Over 50 Starting Over. I'm Barry Edwards. And today we are joined by Stephen Kunes, who was born in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and attended New York University, where he received BA degrees in creative writing and comparative literature. At age 26, TV legend Norman Lear recruited him to write and develop comedies for his company, Embassy Television. This eventually took him to motion pictures, where Kunes became one of Hollywood's most successful script doctors. Some of the notable movies Stevens worked on, just a few: Rainman, Ghost, The Pelican Brief, Castaway, Catch Me If You Can, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and The Theory of Everything. Some TV shows that he's worked on: Kate Allie, Cheers, The Love Boat, South Park, and Johnny Carson. In spite of his success, Steve's life took a series of bad turns. He found himself broke, homeless, and eventually doing jail time. But at 60, Steve picked up the pieces and turned his life back around. And in 2015, he created the hit comedy series Over My Dead Body, which streams on Amazon Prime as we speak. And on November 14th, 2021, Kunes delivered a TED Talk called Square One at 60. And that was filmed in Philadelphia. Steve has a story of true redemption, a phoenix that really turned his life around, pulled himself up by the bootstraps, and reclaimed his life. And it was a really fun interview. All of the talk of some of these favorite shows and movies throughout the podcast was really a lot of fun. So I hope you like it as much as I did. And remember, go to over50startingover.com and sign up. Get all this dropped into your email box as it happens. Nice. All right, Steve, it's very nice to meet you. And where are you today?
Right now, I'm in Newtown, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia.
And your parents are still with us, right?
I've been assisting them. I came, I guess, to visit them for about 6 weeks 5 years ago, and I saw that they really needed some help. My dad's 98 and my mom is 90, so this has been a real education for me.
Sure.
But a very fulfilling one.
I would imagine that you get to give back to the people that gave you so much. And, you know, I usually with these interviews at the end, when we're done, I go back and I record an intro because it's easier after I see what we talked about. Right. And I want to be able to just summarize quickly why people would want to see this. But I want to mention right now, to lay the groundwork, that you are quite a prolific writer, and you got your break kind of early on after going to New York University studying writing. You got your break early on, and you've worked on movies such as Rainman, Ghost, Castaway, Catch Me If You Can, Theory of Everything. That wasn't too long ago. I remember that one.
Right.
And some TV shows like Kate Allie, Cheers, The Love Boat, South Park. Now, how cool was it working on South Park?
I was shocked when they said, would you be interested in, coming in for an interview on it? And I had not seen it. And I looked at it, I go, I can't believe this is on the air.
I know,
it's crazy. Shouldn't this be on like pay adult cable? And I described an episode to my son, and he goes, without telling him that, and he goes, oh, that's South Park. I go, how can this be on the air? This is like, all the things that they cut off the air. I go, this is unbelievable. And it's on,
God, has it been on like 20 years or something?
It's been on, about 21 years, I think.
Wow. Wow. It is still it's cutting edge and terrific. That I don't usually watch network TV just because it's streaming and stuff. But that latest episode I saw on YouTube about Meghan and Harry, and they're going around the world. We want our privacy. We want. That was spot on. That caught a lot of. They were on the privacy tour. Yeah. Right. So I want to cover a lot with you. I want to talk about art in general, the writing aspect that you're so experienced with. But I want to talk about your story, because what inspired you to get into writing? You went to New York University, studied, and rather quickly, you got a big break with a big name in Hollywood. And next thing you know, you're on a Hollywood set and you're off and writing. Can you tell us how this came about?
Well, I think where it really started was in high school when, we had an option of multiple choice or an essay question. And if you didn't really study enough, you can't pick the right answer, but you can always kind of, fake your way through an essay.
Right.
And I was one of probably the only person in the class that I think enjoyed the essay questions and enjoyed term papers. So I don't know what I attribute that to, but it carried over into college. I was going to become a lawyer, and I got into some law schools, and I decided that I really wanted to write professionally, and much to the probably the chagrin of my family, who said, "Well, and then I ended up later working with a lot of lawyers who quit to become TV writers, which
wow.
is interesting. There's a lot of TV writers that are, ex attorneys.
Do they gravitate towards the crime stories, which is so prolific in Hollywood?
They all yes, because it's like the only thing they get hired to do.
Sure.
I have a friend, Mike Chernichin. He went to we met at in New York. He went to Cornell Law School. He started working, I think, in the DA's office, and he always wanted to write, and when I started writing television, he just moved out to California, and he's worked on Law and Order for 25 years, in one of the shows or another.
Wow.
And but you're right. They do snap them up for the crime. They think they're crime experts, and maybe they are.
Sure. Yeah, well, they know, a lot of the legalities that the rest of us wouldn't, so it comes easy to them.
Right.
But then there's a creative aspect to it. Does that side of your brain also house the creative aspect that can propel a story forward?
He also had a degree in master's in literature from University of Michigan. So he would just he would really take works of literature, from Faulkner. One of his episodes was called every time I see something he writes, I laugh. I go, because I know what he's thinking. One of them was called Sanctuary, after one of Faulkner's novels. And I really think that between literature and law, that's added a lot to television.
Yeah.
Unlike me, who I just see humor in pretty much everything. And,
I see everything as a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Yeah.
I grew up on Bugs Bunny. I thought it was high art. I just see everything through that lens.
Right. Well, so that's what I ended up doing. When I was in college, one time we had to write one-liners, or I can't remember what the assignment was, but I came up with about 100 of them. And the teacher told me, Professor Offit, his name is, he said, most of these are terrible. Not terrible, but he said, they're all right. He said, but some are really good. He goes, what's amazing is that you just did that in about 15 minutes.
Wow. That is amazing.
And he goes, so in 15 minutes, if you come up with 5 good, that shocked him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so, I don't know if everything I write is all that good, but I do come up with a lot of things.
And you come up with them quickly. They come to you.
Right.
Because I had in my notes later on down, a few minutes ago, talk about quick, I just put down about 15 questions for me off the top of my head, because I've gotten to know you quite well from listening to your podcast and your show Over My Dead Body, which we will talk about. That is on Amazon Prime. So let's plug that. But I wanted to ask you, I might as well now, we'll skip around. It'll get really fun here, folks. Skipping around. First of all, so you got so many names to drop throughout your life early on. And I'm going to start with that one, because I was going to ask you about, do you have tips on inspiration if you kind of battle writer's block or just any kind of inspiring processes? But at the same time, you made me think about, tell me if I'm wrong here. Didn't you have a college roommate that wrote the first draft of Gremlins in your dorm room? Is that correct?
I did. Chris Columbus.
Yeah, that
And
was
and yeah, talk about a great college story.
to say the
His,
least.
his student film was great. And Gremlin, I'm not really like into that kind of thing. Gremlins,
Yeah,
but I'm like the other 7 billion people in the world apparently were.
right, right.
And he started working for Steven Spielberg like right away. I think he
Wow.
was like 21 years old.
Spielberg
And
did Gremlins? Is that
well,
correct?
his Amblin, the company did Gremlins.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, that he really and with a name like Chris Columbus, it probably opens doors.
Yeah, it sticks with you. All right, I want to get back to. I'm going to get you right back to your journey early on, back to New York University days. But while we're at it, I mentioned, and you mentioned about you just really naturally write very prolifically. Do you ever battle writer's block, and do you have any rituals or processes that you do to get your jog the brain?
Well, my only ritual is, and it's not original. It's just they always say inspiration. There's a saying, inspiration finds me writing. It's like when I sit down to write, I think my ideas eventually come to me, but I don't always have an idea. Like I don't sit there pondering what, oh my, I try. Actually, I do, but it doesn't always work. It's sometimes like I walk every day. Sometimes I'll walk around a mall, like where I came up with my TED talk. I was walking around the mall because they asked me, what am I going to do? Would you do a talk about your show? And I said, well, I don't know if you really want me to talk. I don't know what you know about me, and so, and we'll get into that. But, but when they found out, they wanted me even more. And then I thought, oh my God, now what am I going to say?
Yeah.
And so I started walking around, and instead of trying to force things, I just let ideas, fall into place and see what works and see what doesn't work.
Because you can always shuffle it around. I mean, one idea comes out and it leads to another, and then the next thing you know, you're on a.
Or then you come up with a whole other, like Hemingway said. Who said it? It wasn't Hemingway. Oh, I think it was. I'm all wrong on this. Winston Churchill or something like that. He said, novels are not finished, they're abandoned. And I thought, well, that's pretty much what it is about all writing. When you look back at something, you go, I could have done this, I could have done that. And my theory is, did you get your point across? Like, oh, I could have said it this way, or does everybody know what the story's about? Yeah, they know. Okay, well, then that's,
are you also
mission
saying,
accomplished?
Okay, so are you also saying that no novel, no story is perfect? It always has room for improvement, but if you get your point across, it's a success. Is that what you're saying?
Well, and Kurt Vonnegut said, or no, Mark Twain said that. He goes, I don't use the thesaurus. He said, if it's a word I don't know, then it's not the word for me. And Vonnegut said, if everybody understands what I'm talking about, then I guess I did okay.
Okay, David Ogilvy.
And maybe F. Scott Fitzgerald can say it more eloquently, but if you get your point across, you're ahead of the game.
There's something to be said about being able to speak eloquently and lull someone in. There's something to be said for that. But I'm in online marketing, and I started way early. I started at the beginning of the computer days, I went to college pre-computer days. So I learned the traditional methods, but I was very inspired by it from the advertising point of view by David Ogilvy. And he wrote a book that, and Ogilvy and Mather, and I think New York, not Chicago. I think it was New York. I could be wrong, but he just the most inspirational book for me. And he said, what I really got away out of it is, if you're writing advertising or marketing, you have to use common words that people understand. You have to speak very directly. And a funny thing is I've used that for my process in writing about a company when I'm building their brand and I'm trying to find their value propositions, what sets them apart from everyone else uniquely. I'm telling you what, Steve, it's this process of getting them in a conversation where they feel like they're having a beer with you, or they're on the second or third. And so they get beyond saying words like quality and innovative and all that. And they just start speaking from the heart about what really got them into this. You just take the swear words out of there and you got your marketing copy right there.
Right. And the thing is that, and I was guilty of this. I was trying to write, I was trying, like, how do I want to sound?
Yeah.
And they always say, don't try to be something you're not. And I battled with that. My whole life, thinking, and personally too, thinking I'm not good enough.
Imposter syndrome.
I could sue, for copyright infringement on that because I think I invented it. I'm just really, and it comes down to everybody has their own unique voice and it's them. And if you just use that, everybody loves it. But when you try to be like I had a friend that, I was friends with the producer of Star Trek, right? So I had a buddy that said, oh, this guy, can you get me an interview? I want to write for Star Trek. And I said, have you ever, he goes, he doesn't even watch the show. I go, well, come on. I said, you don't even know what you're doing. You just, because I know this guy, you can't write something. You're never going to do that. Compared to the people that are really into that type of a show. And the same thing, for everybody for some reason wanted to imitate Hemingway. They're going to be the next Hemingway. So the way to be the next Hemingway is not to sound like Hemingway.
Very true. And comedians do this. Comedians that really break through will tell you about the times that they were trying to imitate someone else until they found their own voice.
Right. And it's scary. Like Kurt Vonnegut said, the secret to finding your own voice. He said, I think I'm a pretty good writer, but my sister was really good. You should read her letters. And his sister ended up dying in an accident, and he raised her kids. And he had a picture of her when he wrote, he had a framed picture on his desk of his sister, and he said, everything I write, I pretend like I'm telling it to my sister. Oh. And he said, then people will make the same comment. They'll say, your writing is so personal. I feel like you're speaking just to me. But he's really speaking to his sister.
What a good tip.
And he said, you find something that's deeply emotional, whatever it is, a picture of your grandmother, it could be a person, it could, could be anything. And he said, you have that next to you and you pretend you're telling that a story. You're basically speaking to the entire world that way.
Yeah. I totally understand what you're saying. It takes away that feeling of the ego of, oh, I need to hide this and show it this way. Like you're typing something on social media or something. Yeah.
I think one of the best ways to become to really hone your writing craft is what you did through advertising. Advertising, you really have to make your point quickly with a lot of
2 seconds. Yes, 2 seconds.
You don't have anything. Yeah. And I thought about going into that after college. You really have to put the book together, and it's it's its own thing.
As it turns out, though, you wrote a couple letters, and I don't want to take the story away from you. I want to get back to you're in New York University, New York City University.
Right.
Yeah. And you're just starting to get published. Right. Tell us about that and how you got your first big break.
My first big break, the first thing I ever wrote was for High Times magazine.
I didn't know that.
It was a thing about the this is before David Letterman even did his top 10 list. It was like the top 20 ways you know your kid is smoking pot.
Uh,
And I just wrote these ridiculous things, and it was like that was my first paid. I think I got $40 for that or something. But it was really cool,
Yeah.
to go to the newsstand. And I remember I showed my teacher, my professor, and he said, how many, editions, how many, month after month can they do about pot?
Right.
And I think they're still in print. I think they're still going on.
You think so?
I'm not sure, but I said, apparently a lot.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did that. And I wrote a number of magazine articles, ended up getting in touch with Norman Lear.
And how did you go about that?
Norman, I just contacted him. I
recall you say that you wrote letters or postcards to several people, and he was one of them. He replied.
I didn't write to a lot of people. I wrote to maybe 10 or if that. And I didn't just want to look. I wasn't just looking for a job. I wanted to find somebody whose work I really respected and tell them why. So, yes, I want to work for them. Yes, I want to start my career, and just the way they did. And I found out he started on the Colgate Comedy Hour, back in 1949. But I didn't just do my homework. I really just loved Norman Lear.
Yeah.
And then I read somewhere that he had semi-retired from television because he was involved in politics, and he had this People for the American Way organization. He had actually purchased one of the copies of the Declaration of Independence, and he was going around America like on a road show, showing people this like what he was doing. So turns out I got lucky. He read my letter, and he said, I decided to go back into TV after all. And he hired, I don't know how many thousands of people probably contact Norman Lear, but he hired four young writers, me being one of them. I was 26. And he hired another guy, Jose Rivera, a playwright, Seth Greenland, and Mark Andrus, who went on to write As Good as It Gets. And
that's a great movie, by the way.
That was a great movie.
Yeah.
Right. And he put us on staff. He actually moved me and my wife, who was pregnant at the time, out to California. And I was under contract with him for 2 years, and he ended up selling his company, and then he really kind of did retire. That literally, I guess I was in the stratosphere. I mean, here I am working for Norman Lear. He had 8 shows on at the time.
And what shows were All in the Family?
Well, I mean, when I went there, that had already finished, All in the Family. But he had the Jeffersons, One Day at a Time, Good Times, What's Happening, Silver Spoons. I can't even remember. And the one that I worked on was called AKA Pablo, which was a short-lived series. My first experience writing for TV. TV Guide named it among the 50 worst shows in the history of television. That was Norman's comeback. That was the catch.
Right.
The catch is Norman Lear is going to hire you. You're going to tell all your friends, and then it's going to be named one of the worst 50 shows ever of all time.
However, was it Norman Lear that you said did the unique practice of keeping around seasoned writers to pair them up with young writers?
Yes, what he did was there were a lot of, if you're over 40 in Hollywood, it sounds horrendous, but it's true. They have a committee at the Writers Guild, the over 40 try to get you work committee, I guess, because the Hollywood thinking is that if you are anything, above your 20s or 30s, that's, you're just not relevant. And it's insulting because you have this experience and you're not that old. And so he would hire older writers that did classic shows like Dick Van Dyke, two of the writers that worked on all the old Lucy episodes. He had, yeah, I can't think of all, but they had basically created television,
Right.
and he would put us together, and there's no college that can replicate what I learned from writers like Jack Ellenson and George Tibbles and Dick Bensfield, the names that you wouldn't even know, but they wrote all the best TV shows. They're all gone now, and I learned a real secret from a writer named David Lloyd, who I consider the best comedy writer of all time. He also passed away. He did the old Mary Tyler Moore Show and a lot of Cheers and Taxi. And I will tell your audience right now in 1 minute the secret to writing a great comedy script that you will never hear in any film school.
Please.
And if you want to write a comedy script that blows everybody away for a show, find the show, record it in audio, just like now, and don't watch it, because when you watch a show, you're listening to it, but you're focused on what's happening. Just listen to it. Listen to it about 300 times. And when you've listened to that 300 times, you could literally write those characters ordering, from a menu, and it'll sound dead on just like them. But if you don't listen to it, if you're watching it at the same time or reading a script, you're picturing it. And so your dialogue to you, your dialogue will sound like the characters you're writing, but to another person, they might all sound the same, because you're thinking about what it looks like. You haven't heard it. So I had written some scripts, a spec script for Taxi and a spec script for MASH, and people said, and Norman Lear said, he goes, "This is amazing how you have how the dialogue sounds spot on, just like you've been writing for them for years." Wow. And all I did was that.
You did that trick.
That one trick. So what you do, for anybody listening that wants to write for episodic comedy, pick a show, go online. You could probably get a script online for free, and you've already watched the show because it's your favorite and you want to write for it. Okay, just record an episode and listen to it before you even have your idea, and write it down. And you'll, whether you get a job on that show, you'll get a job somewhere, because it will jump off the page. Right.
So the dialogue is the most important aspect then in comedy writing.
Norman Lear told me, he said people would send in scripts all day long for All in the Family. They love the show. And he said, and Edith and Archie and the meat, they all sound the same. He said, but to the writer, they all sounded like, because that's what they're picturing in their mind.
Yeah.
But to the reader, he goes, it's not really like.
Those are some distinct characters that you used as an example there. That's for sure.
Right.
Hey, let me ask
what he
you
said, so.
About the artistic part of this thing in Hollywood about not hiring writers over 40. Do you think there's any merit to that? Or, you know what, let me put it to you this way. Where I'm at right now in my career, I'm 57, and a big part of me building a brand is graphic design and doing a logo. It's the first part. I used to think doing logos was the hardest part of what I do. And because it's got to be perfect. It's got to be refined and refined and refined until you get it to, and it'd be like I'd be sweating and getting a sick to my stomach, and I'm going to fail this time. And that is about when it start to take shape. But you know what? Today at 57, I could do it so much more easily. And I think it has to do with trusting myself. The experience that I've been through a zillion times. I trust in my process, and I trust in my judgment. Now, let me contrast that, because then I want to see where the writer falls in here. I want to contrast that to the rock band. All the rock bands throughout history that now play the same songs that they wrote when they were 20 years old at 60 years old or 70 years old, that none of their new stuff ever catches on. What is it about that youth of the rock art creativity that seems to just die in your 20s versus what I'm saying about what about your craft? Now you tell me what you feel about your craft.
I believe that the one good thing about the pandemic is that we've all gone on Zoom, and we're used to, it's given people more of an outlet to be creative and to connect with other people. And I believe that it's really helped the ageism. And it used to be that 18, this is what I was told, 18 to 35 is your target audience, but they don't have any money. So I don't understand, like, how are they your target audience? You run ads for them. They're not buying anything. The people that have the money are like, over 50, probably. And so that never made sense. They also said, well, they're mostly the group that watches TV. So, somebody their own age, would be better to write for them. But the problem is somebody their own age really can't write that great because you're just like, don't know that much starting out. And it's like what you said, you not only have the experience, you have, the confidence and you know exactly what you have to do. And I mean, I would just like Michelle said when she won the Oscar the other night, she said, don't about women, don't ever let anybody tell you you're not in your prime. She's 61 years old and won the Best Actress Oscar.
Michelle who?
Michelle Yeoh, or Yeoh, how do you pronounce it?
Okay, I don't really know who she is.
She did that Everything Everywhere All at Once that I didn't see.
Okay,
okay. I have the screener, I had the whole thing. I just didn't. I don't know why I didn't watch it.
Okay.
And like I don't know, probably the only one. Maybe I guess you didn't see it either, but that's two of us.
Right. So you feel that your experience and the confidence that you have in doing your craft all these years actually makes you better at this age rather than any kind of a decline.
I do.
Okay.
I do. The other thing that happened is when I started in 1983, there were 3 networks, and they each had 3 hours, a night, 8 to 11 of prime time. So you have 21 hours a week that you're competing for. And some of that is sports. All right. So, anything after 10 o'clock is a cop show or a hospital show.
Yeah.
8 o'clock to 9, you have the family comedy, and 9 to 10, you have the office comedy. There's not a lot of opportunity. Then Fox came along. So now you got 4. Okay, fine. Then HBO came along and Showtime and all. Then you have like 7 HBOs, and then the internet got created. Now you have, I used to be able to name every show on TV. But I think I just cut my video off. Okay. Off the top of my head, I can tell you like the entire lineup. I can't even name every channel now.
No way.
I mean, there's like 500 channels. They have the golf channel, the poker channel, fishing, Naked and Afraid. What a hit that is. It's like, you spend your life, studying literature and honing your craft and working on dialogue and logos. And then somebody says, why don't you just take your clothes off and go into the woods? And like everybody watches this. So
reality TV, I'll never be able to figure it out. And what seems funny to me is I would have thought with the advent of the first TV cameras and all that, I would have thought common sense would dictate reality TV would be the first thing they would start with. Just turn a camera on, you clowns, and let's see what happens.
No, you're right. They scripted. In fact, the Lucy show was called My Favorite Husband. A lot of people don't know that.
No, I didn't know.
And it was an old radio show, and they had done a couple hundred episodes. And the reason they could do so many per year of Lucy is because they took this radio scripts and converted them into television.
Wow. Okay.
I'm no expert. I just found this out like 3 weeks ago. But that, but that's why I said with the 500 channels or whatever it is, a lot more opportunity for writers of all ages and
all genres. I mean, you name it.
all
It's out
genres, anything
Yeah.
you want. Something is there's a show like that, or somebody would want it.
Right.
So the ageism thing, that to get back to what it really is, in my view, out the window.
That's really good to hear, especially that you seem like you could back up the fact that there's not a real decline there. What is that about? How, well, you said, well, they think they're targeting younger people, so they need younger people to write for them. So I guess that answers the question I was going to ask. But I'm not letting you off the hook on this one. Not that you can answer this any better than me. Why the rock bands? Why do they seem to lose their creative edge after they're out of their 20s?
It's the rock bands and the songwriters. Like, why does Paul Simon write all these great songs between till he's 20, 25?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like there's one here and one there, and then suddenly that's a great question, because novelists write great novels when they get older.
Right. Right.
What happened to the song? Yeah, the rock band and the songwriter, and it's kind of like they have this 5-year, 7-year window.
And that's it. I mean, it's mind-blowing. My only theory on that could be that if we're talking something along the lines of rock and roll, that there's an innovativeness that when you get to know too much, you know too much. Instead, you're not experimenting anymore and doing something.
Well, how about, or if you become famous, people want you to play, with the same songs again and again and again, and they get mad at you if you go like, "Oh, I didn't play,"
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe that's it.
Maybe I've always wondered that. But we're really getting off subject because we got a lot of ground to cover. Yeah, as far as I see, we got you through NYU, and we got you off to Hollywood with Norman Lear and his company. Where do things go from there?
I worked on a number of shows. I did a lot of one and done. I did some 2 episodes here, a few episodes there. Creative consultant was where they give you and 6 other writers a script, and then you kind of punch it up, and then you don't even know which changes they will use, but at least they have the option. Those are the shows that have the budget to hire writers to do that. And in fact, sometimes you can't even remember what you contributed, because the person in television that gets the writing credit is the first person who wrote the script. So, the other people around the table, it doesn't have their name on it.
Okay.
But there's no script that's written by one person for episode. None, ever.
What was your role? Weren't you called the fixer or something like that?
I did a lot of, they call it creative consultant. They call it script doctor. It's like, can you make the opening funnier? Like for the Oscars. I mean, can you make the opening funnier, or we need something funny for this person to say, and then a lot of times the actor will change it anyway. But that is most of the work. Well, I would say half the work that I've done.
Okay.
Yes, Robert Towne is very well known for writing about 5 screenplays. And I think he has rewritten hundreds.
Oh,
but
okay.
his name's never on them, and they pay him a lot of money for that.
Right.
I think they paid him $50,000 to spend an afternoon making notes on The Color Purple way back when.
Back to the rock and roll analogies. I don't know why these are coming to me, but it's like the guy in rock and roll never made it that big, but he can write a jingle all day long.
All day long.
Yeah.
What I always wanted to see is I like people starting over for the first time. I have a friend named Sid Davis. He worked for the Continental Airlines for like 20 years or 30 years, and he always wanted to be a stand-up comic. He retires early, and now he's doing, this is what he does full time, and he's very funny. And I just think we need to see more of that. And the same is true with rock bands. I always had this. There's probably been a movie about this, but like a bunch of guys from high school that get together, they should have done it and they didn't, and then off they go on the road.
No, that would be cool. I do like to see the older rock bands, though, perform their old hits, because even if they're not writing new stuff that people want to hear, they're such better technicians, musicians.
Right.
I love seeing that. Out of nowhere, I got to throw out a piece of trivia about you. You wrote Johnny Carson's final joke that he ever delivered.
Right. He only could. We had like 27 jokes, and everybody kept applauding so much that he only got to do like 14 of them.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it wasn't intended to be that way.
Right,
that was the Lorena Bobbitt joke.
Oh, tell us that. I heard that one. That was good.
It was just Lorena Bobbitt. For those who know who she is, it wouldn't be funny if you didn't.
Yeah, pause this right now and Google.
Lorena Bobbitt went to, her trial began this morning, and the judge said, "Mrs. Bobbitt, please raise your right hand and keep the other one where I can see it." So that would be.
No, I just popped you all over the place, and I'm sorry. I tend to do that. I get into something and I just start asking questions. But so I got you on the Tonight Show all of a sudden. When did that come up? Because you were on there for like 4 years, right?
Right. That happened. I knew a writer named Buddy Winston who said, Buddy Winston didn't work for Carson. He worked for Jay Leno, but he knew the producers, and he said, why don't you just write some, you'll have all these. I was always good at writing these lines or coming up with stuff from the news that day. So why don't you just like have your agent send it in? And that's what happened. And they called me, and it turns out that one of the producers, Jeff Sotzing, he was Johnny Carson's nephew. Not only was he his nephew, what a shock, a producer being the guy's nephew, but he went to my grade school in Pennsylvania.
Really?
Carson's sister lived like a mile away from, like, in the early 60s.
Wow.
And anyway, that I got hired before, but I knew that. And people said Johnny was, don't talk to him. He's cold, or just blah, blah, blah. Not to me. I talked to him like every day for 10. After he retired, we lived near each other in Malibu and watched the OJ trial together.
No kidding.
Marcia Clark had prosecuted 23 murder trials and won them all.
Yeah.
And he was looking. I said to him, she's won 23, and he looked at Robert Shapiro the first day. He said, well, now she's 23-1.
Who said that?
Carson.
Oh, okay.
He said now she's 23. He just studied that. He goes, oh, this is gonna watch. But anyway, that's what I would do. I'd get up in the morning. There was no internet,
right? So
you get a bunch of newspapers, and you just start circling things that might be funny. And you write the jokes. You deliver them by 11 o'clock with the other writers, and Johnny comes in around noon or around 1, and he's got this stack of jokes, and he picks them and he puts them in order, and they put them on cue cards, and practices it a little bit, I guess whatever in his office, and that's the monologue, and then you don't know what he's going to choose or what he's going to do unless you stay for the taping, or just watch it that night. And you go, oh, right. He used 3 of my jokes.
Right. Do they do a rehearsal, a full rehearsal before they do the final show?
No, they don't do any. They rehearse, the singers rehearse, and they'll rehearse if there's a sketch. Okay. I don't know what they do now, but it's probably
monologue. No, just go out there.
No rehearsal for the monologue.
Wow. You got to be a skilled comedian to deliver that well, I think.
Yeah, and there, Jimmy Kimmel's very good, and Jimmy Fallon's, people look at this and they go, it's so smooth. They go, I could do that. They have no idea how hard that is.
I couldn't do it. I know that. Hey, so let's get to some movies. Well, whatever you want to, because I wanted to try to get you through chronologically take people on a bit of the journey, because I've listened to a lot of different things that you've been on, and I find your career fascinating. And then it takes, then it kind of stalls and it takes a plunge. And then you picked yourself back up and resurrected yourself. So I want to go through all that, but there's some movies in here in between. And I wanted to ask you, when you're writing on a movie, what is the difference between writing on, say, a sitcom, which you've done a lot of to that point, versus movies?
Well, movies are a longer story.
Mm-hmm.
And in my case, I still attack it, scene by scene. Like a lot of times I'll have an instruction to build up a character. Paul Sorvino, how about this one? So the guy they shunned the other night at the Oscars, they didn't put him in the in memoriam.
A lot of people, right?
Well, anyway, he was a friend of mine, and he would say that there's never going to be an assignment you have where the main actor's not going to want one more scene. They always think they need this one big scene.
Yeah.
And so that is true. I would always get to say, can you build up, like even in sitcoms, and Kate Allie, they said Susan St. James wouldn't get the funny lines the way Jane Curtin would. So my marching orders were, we need an episode for Susan to show she wasn't mad, I guess, but to show that she, is really funny. And so That's what I did for her. But with your question with the movies, it's the same thing. We need more of something for one of the characters.
Okay.
Like 99.9, like I already know what they want. Oh, let's come in and talk about this script. And I could tell you, which character do you want? I could even tell, I could read and this person, because a lot of times actors don't read the whole script. They just check off their lines. They actually count how many lines they have in a script.
Wow.
And William Goldman, he said they did that a lot with All the President's Men, to the point where he quit. And he still got an Oscar for that. But he said, I wish I had never done that.
Okay.
Like everybody was battling over screen time.
Oh my God. Let me ask you this. You worked on Rainman, correct?
Right.
And
there were 8 writers on Rainman.
Okay. And I know that you have a friendship with Dustin Hoffman. Which came first?
The friendship with Dustin Hoffman.
He got you on that movie?
He didn't get me on it, but he spoke at NYU. The one good thing about going to college in New York or LA is that a lot of people like to speak, or a major city. A lot of people like to speak to kids, and they're available because they live in New York or LA. So we had Howard Cosell came and gave a sports lecture, and Milos Forman, Dustin Hoffman. I can't remember them all, but Woody Allen even stopped by, and he didn't talk, didn't do stuff like that hardly ever. And so Joe Heller and Vonnegut, and they would just hang out with the kids, and we'd go out and
Is that how you struck up a friendship with Dustin Hoffman?
And that's how we in fact, he said he was talking to a couple of us, and we were going to talk to him about writing. And he said, oh, well, why don't we meet for coffee? He was shooting Kramer versus Kramer at the time. We go over to, he would kill me if I said this. Well, but I don't care. We go over to his house. We walked past his house. We met him first on this corner. He was separated from his wife, and he had to go get something. So we walked, wait here a second. And his wife started throwing his clothes out the upstairs window. It's like on 65th Street in New York.
Oh my God.
And then he looks, he goes, I guess this is not a good first impression. And then we were having coffee, and yeah, I will never forget that.
I bet you won't forget that.
July 29th, 1978, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
That's when that just particular thing happened.
And so I'm guessing Rainman was probably about 4 years later. That's off the top of my head. Is that correct?
No, it was in 88. That was
it was late 80s.
It's actually 10 years later, and it was done during the strike. And I worked on it under a waiver from the Writers Guild because none of us were allowed to work, but the company had signed an agreement saying we'll agree to anything, whatever, to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how that worked out. And then I was actually shot during the strike too, and won the Academy Award.
But didn't at least a couple directors quit during the?
Everybody quit. Steven Spielberg was the director, and he said, after about 20 minutes, he goes, "I don't think anybody's going to want to watch a movie about an autistic person."
Wow.
So he quit, and then Sidney Pollack was going to do it, and then he quit, and then Martin Brest, who did like 48 Hours, quit, and after that, like nobody wanted to direct Rain Man, and finally Barry Levinson said, "Well, I'll do it," and so it went from a higher budget to a pretty low budget movie, and was shot in Cincinnati and most of it Oklahoma, Vegas. Next thing you know, it's like this classic, and wins the Academy Award with people. Everybody knows that,
right?
But the fact is that a lot, and I told people, I said, Spielberg's going to direct. This is like a big deal, and then they all thought I was lying. Like everybody quit.
Wow.
And Barry had done Diner. He was a very good director, but it went from like Spielberg to Sidney Pollack to the guy that did 48 Hours.
Right.
And when he quit, that was like, who's next?
Was it always the stigma of that it was surrounding this guy that was autistic, or was it the writing? What was it?
And initially, he wasn't autistic. He was basically what they call mentally retarded. Now they don't use that word, I guess.
Right.
They call it. And they go, well, why is he? How come he doesn't know his brother? Well, he's in an institution. Well, and his brother doesn't know him. Well, why do we want? Okay, so now that's 10 minutes. What's so interesting about him? That and they go, well, and there was a psychologist in Sherman Oaks, California, named Jack Scher, and he said, "Why don't you make him an idiot savant?" I go, "Well, idiot?" Like he says, "Yeah, they remember numbers, gambling, and that was it. Now you could do that forever." Yeah,
it's the mental challenge with the twist. You need your twist.
So that was all changed to that. Wow. But basically, and the whole thing was based on the fact. Another question was, why don't they just fly from Cincinnati to LA? And I go, well, you have no movie. You have to go in the Buick. Well, so he had to make up a reason he couldn't fly. So, well, he doesn't want to fly because he'll only go on an airline that has never crashed, and that's Qantas, and Qantas doesn't go from Ohio to Los Angeles. So that was like, it's a ridiculous premise. But nobody cared. It was like they were just watching him go from one adventure, to the next.
Right. Let me ask you about this one. What was the writing experience like with Castaway? Because there's like no dialogue through the whole movie,
I only did like 4 scenes.
Oh, okay.
4 scenes in that. So it wasn't, but the writing experience, believe it or not, is the script that Broyles did. Bill Broyles was actually an hour longer. Like if you think Castaway was boring on an island, imagine another hour of it.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was editing. That is really editing.
Okay.
Everybody asked me, "Did you write the Wilson line?" No, I didn't write that.
Right.
And that's like the only thing they remember.
Oh, for sure. It was a fantastic movie, though. Absolutely fantastic, with the most heart-wrenching ending that was fair to nobody. That's what they're all beautiful people.
Basically, you're at the crossroads. and he
And
doesn't
that's
know
how it ends.
which
Yeah.
direction to go.
Yeah.
And if you look up, the woman just died recently. The woman that played, I forget her name. Remember, she pulls up in the truck
Mhm.
and she says, "Which way you going?"
Yeah.
And he goes,
So you
"Oh,
got
I
that.
don't know." And she gives him a choice, and then he just left, and then she drives away. That woman, that was like her only role I think she ever did, and
Really?
she just applied. Um, I think she was from Texas or something, and that was like, but it's really a famous like little thing
Oh yeah, for sure.
that she
It's
did.
yeah,
I
very
did
much.
I did work on the scene where he goes and he meets Helen Hunt. Well, when he goes, home and he sees on the refrigerator that there's a picture and she's got
Mhm.
like a whole life. They thought he
Yeah.
was dead,
Yeah.
and he leaves, and she said, "I never stopped loving you," and runs out
Yeah.
in the rain
Yeah.
I like rain, and the car goes in reverse and all that. It's nice to
Yeah.
talk to somebody that knows the
Oh,
movie you worked on. Half the people,
yeah.
what was
Right.
that about? So.
Oh, it was everybody I think remembers Castaway. That was absolutely heart-wrenching. What was the most challenging project you ever worked on? And why was it challenging?
The worst, worst, making. Oh, well, that's a great question. Kate and Allie.
Okay.
This is what I got.
Because that was early on.
Kate and Allie. I meet the director, Bill Persky, who had done a lot of Dick Van Dyke. He created That Girl way back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
He's the director, and he's the one. He said, we need an episode for Susan St. James. Jane Curtin gets all the funny lines, and so do something. And he said, and at the end of the episode, it has to be like some outrageously like a Lucy show. It has to be so funny, like so that she can never complain again that she doesn't get any funny lines. And I said, well, what should we do? And she goes, he goes, I don't know. He said, maybe set it in like a ballet. She loves ballet. She just got tickets to the New York Ballet, and so she would love to do anything with ballet. So this is what I was given. Like that's the sum total.
Yeah.
So a few weeks later, I deliver a script, and Kate's all excited. Kate is Susan St. James. She's all excited. She comes home from work, and she just got tickets to the Russian ballet is in town, and she's going to go, and she's going through all her dresses. She doesn't know what to wear. And they're all nice. She's trying them on, and she goes, no, this won't do. Oh, I don't have anything to wear. And Allie says, why don't you go to Bergdorf Goodman and just charge a dress? Like my friend Anne, she does this all the time. She wears it and takes it back, with it, and so I couldn't do that. Well, she does it. She puts $850 in her MasterCard. She goes to the stunning dress. She goes to the ballet. And it's everything. Ever since she was a kid, she wanted to go, and they even invite her backstage afterwards. So she goes backstage. Some guy in front of her spills wine, but she go, oh my God, it's going to go in this dress, and she has to return it the next day, right? Or lose her money. So she backs up, so she avoids that. But she backs into the star ballerina, who's still wearing makeup, so the imprint of the ballerina's face goes on the back of her dress, right? So she's got this face on her dress. So then she tells Allie, well, we'll have to go there's an all-night dry cleaner in New York City, Mr. Rosenfeld, the all-night dry cleaner. And he looks at this, he goes, I don't know if I can get this out. I'll try, I'll do my best. So they come back the next morning, they get the dress. He got the stain out. This is amazing. He hands her this nice red dress. And she said, this is a red dress. This is not my dress. Like, where's my dress? Oh, Mr. Callahan took it by mistake. Well, doesn't Mr. Callahan know? Oh, he picks up dresses all the time. He's down the street. They go down the street to Mr. Callahan. It turns out it's a funeral home. And guess where the dress is?
Oh, I could tell. Okay. Yeah.
So they walk in. The dress is now on Miriam. Miriam is a school teacher that donated all her life savings to kids. Anyway, she got this dress on. It's like, oh, he can't take the dress off Miriam. But they've already told the funeral director, Anyway, she's standing there. There's no place to sit. And next thing you know, it turns out that's the line for the people that want to speak. And Kate, Susan St. James, delivers the eulogy. That's her big moment right there.
Okay.
Okay. So she
So
delivers
she
the
stumbles
eulogy,
through this. Yeah.
does that. And at the end, the funeral director gives her, somehow gets the dress off, and the show ends. They're in the apartment, and Kate, Susan says, Kate says, oh my God, look, Bergdorf's is having a 50% off sale. And Allie says, so forget it. Once those are marked down, you don't know who's had them on. Right? So for 38 years, every time I run into Susan, including last October in New York, she hugs me. She goes, that's the funniest episode I ever. Thank you for writing that.
How cool. So that was your most challenging, you said.
Was challenging because the guy told me, like make the star happy, make it a Lucy
and you did it,
and ballet. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do?
Yeah, you pulled it off.
What am I going to make up? I had to pull that completely out of I don't know where.
Right. No, that's cool. That sounds like a great episode.
That was on 2 days in 1985, 2 days on CBS.
Oh, okay.
It's in the Paley Center for Media in New York. It's the Museum of Broadcasting put it in there.
Oh, no kidding.
It's there, right? Yeah. One part of their collection.
That reminds me, it seems like you worked on an episode it was The Love Boat. That's
also in the Paley. They chose that one too.
Yeah.
That was another one. That
was challenging. Or
they just said we're looking for an episode for the 200th show, and so Aaron Spelling wants an all-star cast. He's spending all this money to get everybody.
The big names.
So now we need a story that would involve a whole bunch of characters. So what am I going to do? So I said, what if somebody hid something on the ship and the word got out and everybody's on the ship and they ripped the whole place apart? Now you can have all kinds of people showing up. So we have Milton Berle was in it, Cloris Leachman, Andy Griffith, Andy Warhol was in it. Ron Howard, Tom Bosley. It was an all-star cast.
You're killing me here. What was hidden? Who hid it?
Well, here's what. So it was hidden by the guy's brother who had actually gone to jail. He had taken and I didn't know what could we hide. And my father-in-law said he collected stamps. He said, how about a rare stamp? I go, well, how rare? He goes, well, the British Guiana Red, there's only one of those. And I went to UCLA because we didn't have the internet. So I had to look this up. And that's what we used. We said it was a rare stamp. He had taken, I don't remember, and they put it on the flag. So when you walk in on the Love Boat, there's a big picture of the boat, like where you check in, and there's a little flag on the boat. Well, that flag part of it, that's the stamp.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't know how great. Well, it was. Aaron loved it. He said he put everybody in it, and I didn't think much of it at the time. And now I go, oh my God, I've written for Milton Berle, and then Cloris Leachman, Andy Griffith.
Well, the ratings on that had to be through the roof. I mean,
they promoted it.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, seriously, in its day, the Love Boat was a
lot of people didn't want to. They made fun of us, the Love Boat. Now everybody goes, wow, you wrote for the Love Boat.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. When did things start to dry up for you? That it seems that you went through a period where you couldn't find work and you started building.
Yeah. What happened was I got divorced. So anybody listening, I wouldn't recommend that. I got divorced. I was married. My wife left. Then she wanted custody of the children. And looking back at it, I should have just said, fine. But no. So I got involved in the custody thing. I started drinking and ran out of money. And I didn't want to tell anybody that my wife had left.
Oh,
In fact,
really?
even my lawyer, I didn't tell. It's like my friend, not just my.
Yeah.
I didn't tell him for 10 months. I lived this whole 10 months, a long time to lie.
Yeah,
I
it
told
is.
everything's good, everything's okay. And I certainly didn't want anybody in show business to know, how it sounds ridiculous now because look at like
Sure.
Robert Downey, people like,
Yeah.
oh, a guy woke up in somebody's house with a needle in his arm. And it's like,
Yeah.
guy says, hey, what's Robert Downey doing in my living room? Oh,
Yeah.
he lives down the street. He made a mistake. He walked in.
But it's always like that in hindsight when somebody redeems themselves. Not
Well,
at the time.
At the time, yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
a tragedy at the
what
time.
I started doing is I had or my dad calls the Las Vegas. I lied to my family by not telling them how bad things were. And so I had some closed accounts, and I make out a check, put it into my current account. In those days, you can't do that now. In those days, you could go the next day and withdraw the money. And about 5 days later, that they go, oh, your check was no good, it bounced, but at least you can pay your bills.
You Bernie Madoff'd yourself.
I I sure did. So what happened was I did, and here's what I was thinking. I was thinking that I'll sell something, I'll get a job, and I'll be able to pay it back before anything happens. What's the worst they'll do? They'll send it to collections, right? Well, that's not the worst they'll do. By law, they have to file a police report.
Yeah.
And so they did. Well, the police didn't do anything. And they didn't do anything, and they didn't do anything because there's so many of these things. But when they have about 20 of them, there's a guy going, wait, why am I seeing this name? Why am I, and the next thing, you're charged. And I got charged.
About what year is this?
2001.
Okay.
Was the first, was a while ago. But here's how I turned it into a mess. First of all, they said, if you pay the money back, we'll put you on probation, and after like a year, they will expunge your record. Okay.
That'd be nice.
How are you going to pay the money back?
Right.
I mean, it added up to like 70 grand.
Yeah. Now you got to rob a bank.
Well, I got to yeah, exactly. So the only way to pay the money back is if you sell something. I have like no skill. Like I worked in a restaurant once for one summer. I think, so maybe I could have done that and made, $20
right
for the week. But I said, for such a smart guy, here I am sitting here. I sold my house. I've got no family. I'm renting this small studio place, hoping that I can, pay for that. I'm spinning this incredible lie, like everything is good, because I had this fear. This is my fatal mistake. I had this fear that if I did what I'm doing right now, telling you what happened, then no one would talk to me again.
Well, it's Hollywood. Everything's about appearances.
This is what got me back, by just saying, Bob Dylan once said, if you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose. I go, wow, I got nothing. Like, what are they going to do to me? And, but anyway, I ended up going to jail. It wasn't like anything you see on, it was like there was no guard, that kind of thing.
This is LA jail. It's pretty much a hotel.
Oh no, LA jail's the worst, but where I went was pretty much a hotel. I got lucky. Okay. But they didn't have enough room for me, so they sent me back. This is really too embarrassing and stupid that nobody will believe it, but this is what happened. They sent me home, and they, on an ankle monitor, they said, well, you could go home, and that's fine. What do? I have no place really to stay. And if I tell them I don't have any place to stay, they'll say, well, we'll find one for you. We got to please just go back to jail.
Yeah.
So I take the ankle monitor off. By the way, I talked to my lawyer before I did this. And I said, what's the worst thing that they can do? And they said, well, they could put you back, but like half the people take these things off, right? So I take it off, but I don't want to he said, but don't lose it, because it's worth like $1,000, and anything over 400, it's like, right, they'll charge you with like theft. You'll have like a worse charge, right? Yeah. So so I send it back to them. I put it in a thing. Oh, well, they saw that, they like an idiot. I don't know.
Oh my God. Yeah.
They see that as like, I'm giving them the finger, right? So now they come and get me, and they charge me with escape by force.
Oh my God.
Because I took the rubber band off that people, and so I have that on my record, and they go, what is that? So anyway, make the papers, so Mr. like appearances, that just like that went out the window. So now in the papers, I talked, Norman Lear said, what did you do? Like he hears about it. He's 100 years old. Okay. This guy was 90 at the time. He goes, what did you do? And I tell him the whole thing. And he says, well, you should have just like told me. I said, well, you're not doing anything like, well, he goes, well, I know everybody. Like I could, gee, what do you need? And then he tells me a story. He says, when I was 9 years old, my father went to jail for 4 years for fraud, for selling fake bonds. And he said, and we had to sell everything in our house, our couch, our tables. We were embarrassed. He's born in 1922. So just think of like 1930. He goes, we had to move. And he said, and for four years, I lived with my grandparents, and I couldn't tell anybody where my dad was until I was like a teenager. And he says, and I don't even tell people. He ended up writing a book. He says, I don't even tell people about that. Yeah. He says, you're not the only one. He says, we all came out to California. This is what he said. We all came out to California to show the people back in our hometown how smart and important we are. Yeah. And look at me, I'm writing a TV show, and look how bad I go to my high school reunion, and I'm acting. And he goes, and the fact is, we're all a bunch of insecure people that are kind of fractured. Yeah. Because if we weren't, we wouldn't be going, subjecting ourselves to some of the stuff, in the first
totally
place.
Agree with that. You talked a bit about, I want to talk a little bit about what is authenticity and the importance of it. I've heard you talk about, we've talked about it on this podcast quite a bit, and it's something that I think sets you free.
Well, it does. And there's a difference between truth or disclosure and authenticity. And I want to say truth. You don't have to tell everybody every intimate detail of your life, like every stupid thing you did, or you don't have to like say. So, but what you don't want to do is you don't want somebody to, you don't want to say something or do something and somebody go, wow, that's not the person I know. Because if you're authentic, then nobody will ever say that you're,
misrepresent yourself.
I've known this guy for 10 years, and I'm telling you, the person that you just described is nothing like the one I know. That's what you don't want, because you're putting on a face, and you can't be a friend with somebody, a friend, have any kind of honest relationship with somebody if the person that you present yourself as is like would shock them if they find out it wasn't really true. Right. It's not like if you said, oh, when I was in I'm gonna make up college, I got drunk and flipped my car or something, like, okay, fine, you don't have to tell everybody that. But you don't want them to find out.
But you don't want them to think you're the kind of guy that couldn't possibly do that.
Right. Yeah. It's just like, and I really feel that during the last 3 years, everybody's been put on a more equal, you look on TV. I remember when the pandemic started, you're looking at Fifth Avenue, you go, wow, nobody's on the street in New York. Like everybody was in the same, like, oh my God, here we are. And it was a big reset.
Yes.
And,
yes.
I just decided, also because of my age, I'm 66 now. I just decided I don't know how much time I have left, but whatever it is, it's not going to be trying to impress somebody or trying, or hiding or I just want to do the best work that I can. And if anybody asks, and they ask all the time, how do I get into TV? Because everybody does it in a different way. It's just try to be as encouraging and helpful as I possibly can. I would like, to be thought of as somebody that added to the world, not somebody that fooled people.
Well, you're a writer.
No, that's my job. So,
right. You're a writer, though. And have you ever seen the value of your whole story? Like if you wrote it out as an
like everybody, they always say that.
Yeah.
And I go
because we're not done yet. We got to talk about Over My Dead Body yet.
Yeah. I'm
the resurrection.
I just feel that everybody, there's a lot of crime stuff on, and people that try to exploit their mishaps. Sometimes they can be taken. You might think that they're just they don't care what they did. They're just trying to exploit it. Like, hey, look, I sold more drugs than Pablo Escobar. Or I you'll never guess what I got away with.
Right, but I do. Yeah, the redemption part is good. So. The redemption part is great. You could write that as an inspirational story showing your rise through Hollywood, which is very impressive. And your fall, you could show in a very comedic light because you did some dumb stuff there.
I did some really dumb, like there's nothing. I definitely could be on the world's dumbest criminals.
Now let's talk about how did you pull yourself up by your bootstraps there and come up with a new TV series called Over My Dead Body?
Well, yeah, what happened was on the Tonight Show, we used to keep a fantasy list of guests of people that we would like to have on the show, even if they're dead, or people that wouldn't come on, like Queen Elizabeth, Princess Diana, Humphrey Bogart. And I just thought, why not go to their graves, get a voiceover actors, have a host sit there, it's Over My Dead Body, plug a mic into their headstone and a little speaker, and never, this is the key, never mention they're dead.
Right.
Just say, what did you do, in your life? Tell us about when you filmed, let's say, Casablanca or African Queen. How did that feel? What are you working on now? What are your take on current events? Do you have any family recipes to share? We asked Robert Kardashian. We've done we interviewed Steve Jobs, we interviewed Richard Nixon, Mark Twain, Phyllis Diller, and I just wanted to do something that was. I missed working on a talk show, so I thought, well, here we have unlimited guests, and it's a quirky idea. And what happened was I felt that a lot of people didn't know who my guests were. So now we spend about a third of the episodes educate, who is Mae West? My cameraman is 30. He didn't know who Mae West was.
All right. I don't know much about her.
Yeah, Jack Benny, Groucho Marx, George Burns, people, Jimmy Durante. So it turned out to be like an educational comedy thing. And, we're doing 60 episodes. They're extremely fun to write and to research.
I wanted to ask you.
There's our
Steve Jobs.
Steve
Can
Jobs.
I play just a second of this?
Sure.
Because I want people to get a feel for it. It's so ridiculous that it's funny. And I love this episode. And first, I wanted to ask, let me just play this.
The first interview you've agreed to do since
Steve
your
Jobs.
death in 2011.
His gravestone.
You're quite welcome, Marty. I'm guessing most of the people watching this show are doing it on an iPhone or an iPad.
No doubt. Mr. Jobs, Steve, would you mind telling our viewers a little about your background?
Not at all. In 1955, I was placed for adoption. Thank God, because my real father was a Syrian.
I think he probably was going to swear right about there. There's a lot of that going on.
There's a lot of that in the show.
And I try to keep that to a minimum. But speaking to what you said there a minute ago, a lot of research goes into it. That was the first thing that I realized is because I learned a lot. I thought I knew a lot about Steve Jobs, but I learned a lot from that interview. And oh my God, what a despicable guy. I knew he was kinda.
He never invented anything.
No, he didn't. He just cracked the whip.
What he did, yes, he was great.
And marketed. He was great at marketing.
The best. Well,
Yeah.
from being in advertising marketing,
yeah.
So he, like he took, he had a designer, Johnny Ive, and he said, well, why don't we just make like the iPod? He created that little wheel and made it very user friendly. The same thing with the mouse. He didn't invent that. He licensed that from Stanford. And he said, nobody knows computer commands, but this your grandmother can use. You click here and you point, and he
made it visual.
He made it visual, and then he sold the hell out of it.
Right.
And, so we did that. Phyllis Diller was 38 years old, and she was a housewife and was the first female stand-up comic. And, started then. Julia Child worked for the CIA. A lot of people don't even know that.
I didn't know that.
She didn't start work. I didn't know any of this. I just thought, wouldn't it be funny to do Julia Child? So I'm researching. I go, wow, this is like, she didn't make it till she was 40. She taught herself how to cook. She didn't know it was like a cook, a chef. And so, we've done that. Mark Twain went bankrupt like 4 times.
I didn't know that.
He had an opportunity to invest in the telephone, and he turned it down. He said, who is ever going to use this?
Yeah, right. Right.
Steve Jobs said nobody would ever read an ebook. He didn't want to get involved. He said, people don't read as it is. Why are they going to read an ebook?
Right.
So, we've Nostradamus, none of his predictions were really true.
That's funny. I did not know that at all.
He used to do the Farmer's Almanac type thing, like the weather, and none of it was ever true. They ran him out of town because of that. Huh. So I'm really enjoying doing the show. It's quirky because we don't go to the cemeteries. People say, gee, it looks so real. Don't you get arrested? You can't go. I say, no, we do it in a green screen studio.
Right.
And you probably can tell that, but
sure.
We're doing Sigmund Freud. We're doing Walter Cronkite episode next, Jimmy Stewart, Sigmund Freud.
I saw Cosell.
We just did Howard Cosell.
Mm-hmm.
And then we use voiceover actors from all over the world. Whoever can do the voice. We have a guy named Frank Gerard in Connecticut that does a lot. He's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Has a home studio. A lot of people do this from their home, and then they just. Sure. I never meet them. I could just, they send it in and.
Well, most of your voices, at least a lot of them, people wouldn't know what they sound like anyway.
Well, they wouldn't know Mark Twain or Nostradamus,
or
probably not Robert Kardashian or even Steve Jobs, but they would know Richard Nixon and Rodney Dangerfield or Joan Rivers.
Jimmy Stewart would be a good one.
Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
A lot of people out there do a very bad Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Not so easy to do.
No, but he's got such a distinctive voice. So how many seasons total do you have now?
We so far, we got killed by the pandemic. We were shooting in LA. That we used the Hollywood green screen right at Universal that shut down permanently. We had a studio called Shetler Studios in New York. It was there for 50 years. The pandemic permanently closed. So now we use the Comcast Center in Philadelphia.
Good.
And it really, so we've only done 12 episodes so far, but we're doing 60, and we could do as many as 300. I don't know.
Right. Now you could do a lot more than 300.
Well, here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to live long enough to do all the ones I want to do. So we're going to do the Hollywood Lifetime Achievement Awards. And that's going to be like the Oscars for dead people.
Yeah.
So that way we can give like the best of all time, and we can have presenters and cut to the real Oscar audience. Like you'll see Clint and Jack Nicholson and all that.
Right.
And so that's what we're working on now. And then we'll have like 36 different presenters, 18 categories. We're going to do best animal, best studio mogul, things like that. In addition to
that's ambitious.
It's ambitious.
Did you have any problem selling this from concept to production?
No, because we made a spec pilot.
Okay.
And the head of Amazon went to NYU. That didn't hurt.
Oh,
Jennifer, and she had worked at NBC before.
Okay.
But you know what? Did we have? Yeah. I mean, I think it's part lucky. I don't know, like if anybody would have bought it.
Well, I mean,
everybody that sees it, they go like, "I love this. What a great idea."
It's a great idea. It's very unique. And we're certainly talking about in a day and age where unique is hard to come by. And in fact, let me ask you that. I've heard you talk about favorite movies of days gone by and things like that. But what I haven't heard you talk about is, do you think there's anything out there today, recently, whether TV show or movie, that's truly like you went, wow, that's some unique writing there? That's a tough one, huh?
That is a tough one because not.
I got one.
What?
Well, I probably could come up with a few, but right off the top of my head, because I said Lisa and my partner and I would we binge watch shows here and there when we find a good one. This Is Us.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, and that's
right.
I just said like every week. My God, that's unique writing. And you just don't see that anymore. And for those of you that don't know, This Is Us is showing a family, and they go through the generations from little kids. The casting on it is incredible, was incredible. And they would show them as little kids, and then in the same show, show them in middle age, and the same show, show them in later adulthood, and how the things that shaped their lives as little kids affected them all the way through their lives as adults. And sometimes they resolved these things, and sometimes they didn't. Right. But Steve, you got to agree with me. What the most impressive thing was is that they hit almost every issue that nobody else would ever touch, like obesity, the trans thing, different things, without ever getting political about it, without ever going down one road or another, but just putting it out there for you. I mean, I thought that show was the ultimate and impressive as far as writing goes. I
would have voted for that. I'm actually on the committee, on the Writers Guild committee for episodic comedy.
Nice.
For nominating for the awards every year. Mm-hmm. And it goes to a committee, and then it goes to the general membership. That way, because otherwise they found out the general membership, a lot of times you just vote for your friends.
Yes.
So this way the committee, I'm in the comedy division, but they take the names off and you just read the script. But this year I didn't get that. I got Abbott Elementary was one. That was very well written.
I never heard of it.
Abbott Elementary.
What's it on? Where would I catch that?
I don't even. It didn't say. It didn't say. It's. I think it's on ABC. I think on the ABC.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
They just sent me one of the episodes that was submitted for consideration for the award.
Okay.
And I think This Is Us got the award. Actually,
I hope so. They deserve it. I don't pay attention to that.
I can't. All I know is a lot of the scripts. I think I got 11 this year. I go like, how did this get on the air? That's another thing you might want to like. Did you ever watch TV? You go like, how did this get on the air? I can do better than that. And the truth is, you could do better than that.
Right.
And I have no idea how it got on the air.
Right. I don't know if anybody would know of this, but there's a new show that's kind of a ripoff of that other show that was How I Met Your Mother. It seems to be a ripoff of that show with that Mickey Mouse star, the blonde. She's older now. Starts with Hillary something.
Hillary Duff?
Yes. And I just saw the trailer for the pilot, the launching of the show. It was awful.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, I think the show's doing okay. I'm not sure, but
really?
To your point, maybe it's, I think maybe the streaming platforms have really killed the quality of network.
They have. I had a friend who passed away in 2013, and before he died, he was an old TV writer. Before he died, he did this. I guess somebody went to his apartment and videotaped him. And they go, what do you think TV is going to be like in 10 years? I have it. He said, what do you think TV is going to be like And he said, "You really want to know what's going to happen with TV and movies?" He goes, "Well, nobody's going to." This is before the pandemic. He goes, "Nobody's going to go to movies anymore." He said, "Unless it's an event thing like Avatar or a new James Bond thing." He said, "Those big flat screens that cost $4,000, they're going to cost like $300. Everybody's going to have one, and streaming's not going to have glitches anymore. So they're going to watch all their movies and TV." And he goes, and he was just learning how to use a phone. He was in a wheelchair, this guy's whole life. And he said, everybody's going to watch their stuff, most people on their phones or the little tablet things. He goes, or they'll have the screen. He goes, and he said, and there's going to be a lot of niche channels. There's going to be like the golf, the poker, the swimming channel. That he goes, and it won't pay as much money for writers because there's not as big of an audience. He goes, but there's going to be a lot of opportunity for, different programming. It's not going to be the same stuff that goes to the lowest common denominator, that you've been used to seeing.
But this guy was a true Nostradamus. A real one.
Everything he said is true, and I think it's going to become more true. For instance, a lot of people have podcasts now, and so
really,
really, you probably didn't know that. But because of digital technology, you have this workstation you can have in your home with a camera, and you can put your show out by just one click to the entire world. You could never do that.
No, and I think a really good thing about that is as automation and AI continues to take more and more jobs, look at how many people the entertainment industry is employing today. I mean, thank God for that, right? I mean, if you go from 4 channels 30 or 40 years ago to 3,000, 4,000, or maybe if you count podcasts, then you got to go to 3, 5, 10 million, something like that.
Yeah, so, we did with Over My Dead Body. My son said this. I go, "What am I going to do?" He said, "Why don't you just take the audio and just take that off?" Because he goes, "They're really like a podcast as well." So we did that. It's up on 34 platforms. I think we get more listeners to that than we do viewers to the show on Amazon Prime.
Right. You probably do.
It's a different experience to listen to it.
It's funny to watch though, because it's silly.
Oh,
it doesn't,
because all the video and it's silly. It's kind of like a little grander version of Between Two Ferns.
It is. That's a good way to put it. Which anybody that's never seen that's funny. How do you say his name?
Zach Galifianakis.
There you go. I could never say that again, even on the heels of that.
We have the same. We have the same representative. That's the only way I know it.
Is that right? Let me ask your opinion. Is that rehearsed? It's got to be. Is that rehearsed with the guest? Because the guests look. I mean, I know they're actors, but they look genuinely offended as he's saying some.
I have no idea. I don't even know if they make. I mean, I obviously they're pretending to be offended, but he gets all these famous people.
Really?
Like he had Hillary Clinton, I think, and he had
Keanu Reeves. Yeah.
I'm going like, why? I think, why are these people doing his show? That's really what the funny part is.
It kind of is. No, that's really funny. Do you think did you watch Breaking Bad?
I did. I thought that was very good.
I'm really going back to thinking unique stuff. I think it was the best show I ever saw.
Probably ever.
Yeah. And this is what I'm liking.
How do you pitch a show like that?
How do you? Because no one's seen that before.
Somebody's like, you haven't done it yet. And you just say, well, here's a show I want to do. And I think it'll be a hit. And then you're the executive sitting across the table.
Yeah. And you've never seen anything like that.
And you go like, this is either the best or worst idea I ever
and probably
heard.
Because on top of that, what's his name that played Jesse Pinkman was only supposed to be in 1 or 2 episodes, like the pilot or the second, but he hit it off so big with the audience, they just kept writing him in. And could you imagine Breaking Bad without Jesse Pinkman? Of course not. No. But what I've liked about some things that have come around lately is the artistic integrity. And what I mean by that is Breaking Bad, 5 seasons. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Ozark, same thing. And Ozark was almost as good until that series finale, which was terrible. And we are into binging now. It's 5 years old or whatever. Lisa and I are binging Justified now, which is fantastic show. Did you see that one?
I did.
I did too.
It's a great show.
Yeah. Again, though, beginning, middle, and end. What I mean is that they're not doing the Lost thing or Walking Dead thing and trying to milk that cow for as long as they possibly can because it's still making a few bucks.
Right. That's another thing that I like is that you can adapt the book, or you can come up with a limited series and do and it's just 8 episodes, 12 episodes.
Yeah.
And that's a standalone thing. You don't have to do it.
I like it.
You're not looking to do like 10 years or,
yeah.
I think that you can tell better stories by having that time to do it. And then people just binge watch it.
No, for sure. Now, are you the type like me? You'll start watching something and then forget that you were watching it and you're on to other things.
Right.
And maybe you'll come back to it sometime later.
I do that, or I tend to turn something on that I've already seen.
And not realize.
I'll go like, I'm watching this. I know I've seen it before, but I just can't stop. I just can't do it. I go like, next thing you know, they're rolling the end credits.
Yeah, no, I've done that before too.
So
a show that I think is fairly unique that I just started. Well, I started watching a year or so ago. It's on season 3 now. It's called You on Netflix.
I have not seen that.
It's about this guy, rather young guy. At least it starts out that way. He kills his first wife because of our first girlfriend or something like that. And that's what all of season 1 is about. First, he traps her in a room, then he kills her, but it's really well done. I mean, and it doesn't come off as dark as what it sounds like what I'm saying. And season 2 is the same kind of thing, but with his wife now rather than girlfriend. In season 3, which I'm in the middle of watching now, he moves to England, changes his identity and gets involved with a whole different slew of people, yet he's still a killer. He finds himself in situations where he has to kill people. It's unique. It's a lot better than what I made it sound. So if you ever want to catch that,
I will definitely do that. My only question is, how do people afford all of these now streamers? You have
you got pick and choose.
You've got the networks. Each network now has their own internet channel, CBS.com and Peacock and all that. And you got the cable, you've got the streamers, and it's just you could spend $500 a month probably on.
You could, I always try to, it's over 50 starting over. I try to encourage people to get off the cable. Our age group is a little slow to do that. The cable doesn't offer much anymore. I've been doing for some years is using a digital antenna just to get local channels for the occasional sporting event. Other than that, the cable offers me nothing. I watch primarily Netflix and Amazon Prime, and then we dabble with another channel here or there when they have some shows that we can't live without. And that's about it.
What about like Hulu and Apple and Crackle?
We've done Hulu and Apple just because certain shows that'll be on there. So you could either do a test run or just go for a few months and then cancel it. We've done those. Yeah. It's not worth. I mean, we don't watch enough TV to warrant spending $200 a month on it.
That's another thing. I don't really watch that much TV anyway.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. You can get anything on demand. I remember like we were growing up, you would go, I better be home by 8 o'clock. The show's coming on. And,
yes. Well, with Justified, that was no longer on Prime. We're paying $20 a season to watch it, but it's on demand for us.
Right.
And it's worth it, So that's how that's going. Well, where can people catch you? And I'll put the links in the show notes so you guys know, but I want to know from you, where's the best place to catch you and Over My Dead Body?
You know what you could do? If you go to the website, it's overmydeadbody.tv. Okay. There's a couple links on it. One is for Amazon, but if you don't subscribe to Amazon or want to pay for it,
which would be crazy.
Yeah.
You should have Amazon Prime.
I understand, but you can also go up to You see where that says YouTube?
Yes, I've caught it on YouTube.
I have it, and you can watch it for free there,
Right.
because I understand people can be on a fixed budget. If you
Mhm.
go up, to where it says podcast, you click on that, and that. See, you're more sophisticated than I am. I couldn't even do this on Zoom.
Uh,
But that link will take you to all the places you could listen to it as a podcast if you don't want to watch the show. But it's the exact same episodes.
yeah, and it's that is worth doing. Like I always say with this show, Over 50 Starting Over, may as well just listen to. That's what I do with all my podcasts. But again, I'm just going to say about Over My Dead Body, I get a kick out of watching them put that microphone on the gravestone and all of that
And
stuff.
it is pretty funny.
It
I'll
is.
give you that. But
And you do some nice overlays
did
too.
you ever think we'd live to see the day where podcasts existed and became popular again?
No,
I mean,
no.
I really do believe. I went to the audio awards where I saw Susan St. James in October in New York. There's a company called Wondery that sponsored it. Daily Variety put it on, and Gotham Media, whatever it was.
Mhm.
And I saw this whole world of podcasting. Like,
Yeah.
everybody there was a podcast producer, and they
Yeah.
had shows I'd never heard of. I felt like I just sat there and listened.
Sure. I think it's very, very important, maybe even more so than you realize. I've been listening to podcasts for about 7 years now, and I mean a lot. And it's my main media platform. I always have earbuds in my ears no matter where I go. So I'm listening when I'm working out, going to the store, driving around, whatever. So, but I like things where I learn from. And here's my point. Our media is so manipulative today, and the news is all bought off, brought to you by Pfizer, owned by the big
Right.
giant companies you don't even hear of, Comcast and Vanguard and such, and they're agenda driven. And so you're not learning. Well, you're learning what they want you to learn, the deep state. I'm going to sound all conspiracy theory, but I'm very serious about it.
Right.
And there's a lot of independent publishers and journalists and scientists that are on podcasts. I like to listen to Rogan regularly. He has incredible guests on there, and you'll listen to 3 hours of high intellectual podcast. And then Jordan Peterson is a must. Lex Friedman, he's amazing. Sam Harris. In fact, Sam Harris is on Lex Friedman's podcast right now that I'm listening to. These are name a few. Oh, Crystal and Sagar. They do a news program. And Steve, I bet you don't know of this, but Crystal and Sagar, Crystal Ball is the girl. She's a left-leaning journalist who used to work at MSNBC. And Sagar and Jetty is a right-leaning journalist.
Yeah.
Do you know of them?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. And he used to work at Fox. And they have their own show on, and they both have said that the reason they're doing the show, they went solo, is because you have got to read the talking points if you're on mainstream media, either side. And they said you can make your career just fine that way, but you're going to be, you sell your soul.
Right.
And so they have a terrific podcast where you get, and they're not, when I say she's left-leaning, she's a little left-leaning, he's a little right-leaning. They're pretty moderate. So I feel like I get a lot of good information from podcasts that I would not be able to get from cable.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, with all that preaching being out of the way, any parting words you want to leave us with? Any inspiration? I mean, you are certainly inspiring to me. You've seen it all.
The thing is that we live in a day and age that, you don't have to know somebody or get incredibly lucky to do. You can now write and produce your own work.
And you're doing that.
For instance, you can, if you want to publish a book, you can publish it through Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
Self-publish, yep.
And in the old days, people would laugh, aha, he's self-published. Yeah, well, they're not laughing at 50 Shades of Grey. And
Right.
that's how they publish that. And Stephen King self-publishes a lot of his own stuff now.
It's
And
good to hear.
you actually make more money because you'll get 70% of the purchase price versus 10% if you go to Simon and Schuster.
Yeah.
And so, that's, I feel that there's opportunities. And I think that the more years we spend on the earth, the more stories and the more information we have to share with other people. And now we have the opportunity between podcasting and publishing to do that. And it's available there's a lot of stuff out there because of it. You got to wade through, but the upside or whatever is you're free to do it. Nothing is standing in your way. You don't have to,
right.
You don't have to find a literary agent in New York that will never talk to you and a publisher that, will reject you for 5 years, like John Grisham went through.
Right. But not only that is the tech stuff has gotten easier to use too.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's very important. All right, Stephen, with that, I think we'll wrap up here. And I really appreciate it. Stephen Kunes, everybody. And the show is Over My Dead Body on Amazon Prime. Please catch that. I had a blast talking to you.
This has been a lot of fun. It's really nice to talk to somebody that's up on current events and in my age range that really appreciates,
moving forward, getting a little bit better every day. That's what we're trying to do here.
That's
all right, Stephen. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody, go to over50startingover.com, sign up there, get all this to your email box as it happens. If you catch us on YouTube, please subscribe and give us a share. But most importantly, I think, is Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating there and catch us at your leisure, whenever you want. All right, Stephen, have a great day.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. All right.